Your life isn't real, it's a reflection. You've spent years trying to fix things on the outside, chasing success, controlling circumstances, pushing harder, but nothing seems to shift in a lasting way. That's because you've been looking in the wrong direction. Reality isn't a machine you operate, it's a mirror, quietly reflecting back what you believe to be true about yourself and the world. Not what you want, what you are. And if the image in front of the mirror hasn't changed, the reflection never will. You've been trying to manipulate the echo instead of changing the voice that created it. But what if everything you see around you is just a loop? A repeating feedback cycle that begins and ends within you. This isn't a theory or a metaphor. It's a principle. And once you understand it, nothing about your life will look the same again. Most people think reality is objective, something happening to them, around them, outside of their control. They believe life is just a stream of external events they have to respond to. A job loss here, a difficult relationship there, a streak of bad luck they can't quite explain. But that idea, that reality is a fixed structure we must navigate, is the very reason so many feel powerless, stuck, or disconnected. Because the truth is far more confronting and far more liberating. Reality is not external, it is reflective. It doesn't reflect the world. It reflects you, your beliefs, your self-image, your expectations, your emotional state. The mirror principle teaches that everything you see outside of you is a feedback loop from what you hold inside. It doesn't reflect your conscious desires or fleeting thoughts. It reflects the core stories you tell yourself over and over again, even when you're not aware of them, especially when you're not aware of them. You say you want love, but deep down, you don't believe you're worthy of it. The mirror doesn't reflect what you ask for. It reflects what you expect. So instead of love, you get abandonment, inconsistency, rejection. You say you want abundance, but your identity is still wrapped around struggle, guilt, scarcity. So life reflects more of the same. It's not punishing you, it's obeying you. Reality is a loyal servant to your inner world. You are not responding to life, you are generating it. This principle is confronting because it removes the ability to blame circumstances. It puts the responsibility back into your hands, not as guilt, but as power. Because if your internal state is what shapes your external life, then you're never truly stuck. You're just caught in a mirror you haven't yet cleaned. And the moment you start changing the image in front of the mirror, the reflection has to follow. That's not philosophy. That's physics. Consciousness precedes form. Most people never question the stories they inherited about who they are. They're walking around with identities programmed by parents, teachers, trauma, media, and society, and then wondering why life keeps playing out in the same painful way. The mirror doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It simply says, so be it. Show it chaos. It gives you more. Show it doubt. You'll get endless reasons to doubt yourself. But show it clarity, strength, worthiness, and the reflection must shift. There's a reason transformation feels like war. You're not just changing habits, you're tearing down the identity that built the old life. You're replacing decades of programming with intention. You're standing in front of the mirror and saying, this is who I choose to be now, even when nothing outside has caught up yet, and the mirror listens. It might not change overnight, but it listens. Because unlike people, life doesn't care what you say. It listens to what you believe, what you feel, what you hold. Some teachings are too deep, too raw, too disruptive to be shared here. That's why we created Insights Academy, a free newsletter where we explore hidden knowledge we can't publish on this platform. Sign up using the link below and you'll also get a free copy of the Kybalion, but only while it's available. There's a quiet power that comes from finally accepting that you are not at the mercy of your reality, you're the one feeding it. Every belief is a brushstroke. Every identity is a filter. And until you change that internal filter, life will continue to echo the same experience again and again, dressed in different clothes, but carrying the same lesson. The mirror principle doesn't just ask you to dream bigger. It asks you to become the version of yourself who already lives inside that dream. Because once you shift who you're being, life has no choice but to catch up. The most sobering truth about the mirror of reality is this: it has no preference. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't reward you for being good or punish you for being bad. It doesn't care how hard you try, how much you want, or how long you've been suffering. The mirror doesn't operate on fairness or morality. It simply reflects whatever stands in front of it. If that image is distorted, fragmented, built on fear or limitation, the reflection will be too. Not because life is cruel, but because the mirror has no agenda. It just obeys. You might wish for peace, for love, for success. But if the identity you carry says, "I am unworthy," "I'm always overlooked," or "life is hard," the mirror will keep showing you circumstances that make those statements true. Not because the world is against you, but because that's the data you're feeding it. This is where most people get trapped. They affirm one thing with their mouth, but embody another with their mind. They declare abundance, yet feel anxious and undeserving. They ask for love, yet still carry the scars of abandonment like a badge. And so the mirror reflects the truth, not of their words, but of their energy. You can't outsmart the mirror. You can't lie to it. You can only shift what you're projecting into it. That's why self-deception is so dangerous. It creates a gap between what you say you want and who you're actually being. And in that gap, frustration grows. You wonder why nothing's changing, why manifestations don't land, why it feels like the universe has forgotten you. But it hasn't. It's listening with precision, and it's responding with absolute accuracy. The mirror doesn't reflect desire. It reflects conviction. This is why surface-level affirmations often fall flat. You can repeat, "I am abundant," all day long, but if your body is tight with fear, if your nervous system is still bracing for lack, if your identity still clings to the past version of you who always had to fight, then that's what the mirror responds to. It's not about what you say when you're trying to manifest. It's about who you are when you're not trying. That's the true broadcast. That's the signal the mirror locks onto. So when you see repeating patterns in your life, don't take them personally. Take them as clues. If every relationship ends the same way, if money always slips through your fingers, if opportunities seem just out of reach, that's not random. That's feedback. The mirror isn't punishing you. It's showing you where your internal script is still running on autopilot. And once you stop fighting the reflection and start decoding it, you gain something most people never touch: sovereignty. Because if the mirror has no agenda, then that means you're the one holding the brush. You're the artist, the author, the scriptwriter. Not of other people's actions, not of the weather or global events, but of how your inner world responds, aligns, and therefore attracts. And when that shifts, everything shifts. You stop begging life to change. You stop waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right breakthrough. Instead, you become the source of the shift. It's not your job to force the reflection to change. It's your job to change the image that the mirror is responding to upgrade your identity, to clean the lens of perception that keeps showing you the same old scene. And when you do, the mirror will reflect back the new version of you, not because it wants to, not because it loves you, but because it has to. It has no choice. That's the power in this principle: neutrality. It means no one's holding you back. No one's deciding your fate. The mirror is simply listening. The only question is, what are you showing it? Most people spend their entire lives arguing with the mirror. They look at their current reality, broken relationships, empty bank accounts, daily stress, and they try to fix what they see without ever realizing they're staring at the echo, not the source. They change jobs, move cities, start new habits, end old ones, hoping something will finally click. But the pattern always returns. Maybe not in the same form, but in essence. Different face, same energy. New opportunity, same fear. And they're left wondering why life feels like running on a treadmill. Exhausting effort, no real progress. It's because they're trapped in the reflection, reacting to the output instead of shifting the input. When you make decisions based on what's in the mirror, you're already too late. The reflection has already formed. It's old news. It's not reality in motion. It's the delayed printout of who you've been. And yet, this is what most people base their identity on. They look at what the mirror shows them, and they say, "This is who I am. Broke, alone, unlucky, overwhelmed." But that's like standing in front of a mirror, frowning, and expecting the reflection to smile first. It doesn't work that way. It never has, and it never will. The mirror doesn't lead, it follows. But we've been trained to believe the opposite. We wait for evidence before we believe. We wait for success before we feel worthy. We wait for love before we open our hearts. And this creates the loop, the exact trap that keeps people locked in patterns for years, even decades. They believe that if their circumstances changed, they would change. But the mirror is waiting for them to go first. Not with hustle, not with grind, but with internal shift. It's a subtle, powerful form of slavery, living in reaction. You become a puppet of your own reflection. The moment you feel a setback, your self-worth dips. The moment someone disapproves, you shrink. The moment life gives you a no, you begin to question your path. But what if that reflection wasn't a final verdict? What if it was simply information, letting you know what energy you've been carrying so you can choose again? Because the moment you stop reacting, you start reclaiming. You start remembering that the reflection isn't a judge, it's a mirror. And that gives you power, not to control life, but to influence it from the inside out. When you stop needing the mirror to change before you feel better, you flip the entire script. You become the cause, not the consequence. And that's when life begins to soften, because you're no longer adding resistance to the echo. Here's where the breakthrough lives. The mirror has no memory. It doesn't care what's happened in your past. It doesn't care what you failed at. It doesn't care how long you've been stuck. The moment you change the image you're showing it, the reflection begins to shift. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because once the signal changes, the output must catch up. It's not personal, it's a principle. So the question is, are you willing to stop reacting to what's already been created? Are you ready to stop playing the role of someone who needs external permission to believe in themselves? Because the mirror doesn't decide your next chapter. You do, but it's waiting on you to show up differently. Not louder, not harder, just clearer. Your life doesn't need another strategy, it needs a new signal. And that signal starts with how you see yourself when no one's watching, because that's the image the mirror has been reflecting all along. One of the biggest reasons people give up on changing their lives is because they don't understand the delay. They do the inner work, they shift their mindset, change their self-talk, sit in silence, and rewire their beliefs. And then, nothing. Days pass, weeks. The same problems linger. The same lack stares back at them. So they start to doubt the process. Maybe this stuff doesn't work. Maybe I'm just not meant to have more. But the truth is much simpler and far more powerful. Reality is always running late. What you see in your external world is never an immediate reflection. It's a time-delayed response. Like the light from a distant star that takes years to reach Earth, your current circumstances are echoes of who you were, not who you are becoming. And if you don't understand this lag, you'll sabotage your shift right before the new reflection is ready to arrive. In your mind, transformation is instant. You can close your eyes right now and imagine yourself as calm, confident, abundant. You can feel the emotions of your desired life, and for that moment, it's real. But physical reality doesn't move at the speed of thought. It's denser, slower, governed by time and space. Just because you've changed your inner state doesn't mean life can rearrange itself overnight. The mirror is recalibrating. And if you interrupt the process by sliding back into doubt, impatience, or disbelief, you're resetting the signal and delaying the new reflection all over again. That's why belief isn't a burst of inspiration, it's a practice, a commitment to holding the frequency of your new identity before you see the evidence. Because the evidence will come. It always does. The mirror doesn't forget, but it does require consistency, not perfection, not blind positivity, just a steady return to the image you've chosen to embody. And yes, there will be moments where life tests you, where nothing seems to be changing, where the reflection looks identical to the old reality. That's the moment most people quit. They think the mirror's ignoring them, but really it's just catching up. And ironically, it's often right after that breaking point, when you stay faithful to the shift anyway, that things begin to move. That's not a coincidence. That's alignment. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up the next morning to check if it's growing. You water it. You nurture it. You give it time, even though you can't see the roots forming underground. Reality works the same way. If you're not willing to keep projecting the new image without instant validation, then you're not ready to lead the mirror. You're still waiting for it to lead you. So the next time it feels like nothing's happening, remember this. The mirror is not ignoring you. It's updating. The frequency you hold today becomes the reflection you meet tomorrow, next week, next month. Don't confuse lag with failure. Don't mistake silence for absence. Reality isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. The only thing you're ever waiting on is your own consistency. Because when the inner shift is held long enough, reality has no choice but to catch up. Not because you forced it, not because you earned it, but because that's how mirrors work. They don't resist, they reflect. You just have to give them time to rearrange the world around your new self. Your attention is currency, and every time you spend it, you cast a vote for the version of reality you're subscribing to. Most people don't realize they're feeding the mirror every second of the day, not just with their thoughts, but with the emotional weight behind them. It's not random thoughts that shape your life, it's repeated ones, charged ones, the ones you rehearse over and over until they sink below the surface and become your identity. This is why people who complain constantly find more to complain about. Why those who focus on lack seem to always struggle, no matter how much they try to fix it. They're not cursed, they're consistent. And the mirror? It's obedient. It reflects not only what you focus on, but how you feel about it. Your reality is not a passive display. It's an algorithm, intelligently mirroring the dominant frequency you broadcast through your emotions and attention. When you focus on what's missing, what's unfair, what's broken, you tell the mirror, "This is my truth." And the mirror responds, "Understood. Here's more of that." Not because you deserve it, not because you're unlucky, but because that's what you're emotionally tuned to receive. The mirror is neutral, but your focus isn't. Your focus is a high-resolution lens that sharpens and energizes whatever you place it on. Whether that's gratitude or fear, joy or stress, the mirror doesn't decide. It simply amplifies. And let's be honest, it's easy to slip into default focus, to wake up and immediately check your notifications, to scroll mindlessly through other people's lives, to rehearse your worries like rituals. Society makes distraction the norm, complaint the currency, stress the badge of worth. But if you understood the power of your focus, you'd guard it like sacred ground. You'd stop feeding attention to things you don't want more of. You'd realize that complaining is a manifestation ritual in disguise. This is why shifting your life isn't just about affirmations or journaling once a week. It's about retraining your focus, catching the moments when you're energizing the very outcomes you say you don't want, and pivoting, not through force but through intention. Not because you're trying to be positive, but because you're reclaiming your power to shape the reflection. Appreciation is one of the fastest ways to redirect the mirror. It's not just about being grateful for what you have. It's about tuning your emotional state to what's working, what's growing, what feels good. Not in denial of pain, but in defiance of mental autopilot. Every time you choose to focus on what you want, instead of what you fear, you're sending a new signal. And the mirror listens. But here's the nuance most people miss. The mirror reflects your baseline, not your bursts. It doesn't respond to the 5 minutes you spend visualizing abundance if the other 23 hours are spent rehearsing struggle. It's not about being perfect. It's about consistency, emotional consistency. Because that's what builds the new pattern. That's what starts to bend the reflection. So next time you catch yourself spiraling, obsessing over something going wrong, ask, is this the signal I want the mirror to lock onto? And if not, pause, redirect, choose again. Not because you're ignoring reality, but because you're choosing to shape what comes next. Reality is plastic, not fixed. It listens not to your hopes, but to your habits of focus. And when you begin to consciously direct that focus, when you stop letting your thoughts run on fear-fed autopilot, you stop being a spectator, you become a programmer. This is where real change begins, not with force, not with manipulation, but with the quiet, powerful shift of attention. Focused, emotional attention is the language the mirror understands best, and you're speaking it all day long. The only question is, what are you telling it to reflect? Everything you want to change in your life stems from one place, the image you hold of yourself. Not the one you show the world, but the one that whispers behind the scenes. The one that narrates your thoughts when you're alone, in silence, in doubt. That image, your self-concept, is the blueprint the mirror of reality reflects. And until that image changes, nothing else will. You can hustle harder, visualize longer, chase more goals, but if your inner script still says, I'm not enough, the mirror will keep showing you a world that confirms it. Most people don't realize their identity is a collage of old beliefs, scraps collected from childhood, society, past trauma, and the opinions of people who had no idea who they really were themselves. Over time, you wear these fragments like a costume, until it feels like you. You forget you're the one who chose it. And even worse, you forget you can choose again. But you can. That's the gift in this entire process. The image is not fixed. It's chosen, repeated, reinforced, and then reflected. If you want to shift the reflection, you must rebuild the image. You must decide consciously and deliberately who you are going to be, not based on the past, not based on your current circumstances, but based on the version of you that already lives in the reality you desire. That version of you already exists. You just haven't been acting like them yet. So start here. What does your ideal reality look like? Not in vague terms. Get specific. In that version of your life, who are you? How do you carry yourself? How do you respond to challenge? What thoughts do you think? What values do you live by? What energy do you bring into the room? Close your eyes and meet that version. See them, hear them, feel them. That's the image the mirror needs. Not a desperate wish, but a solid identity. One you commit to before any evidence shows up. Once you have that version in your mind, translate it into words. Craft affirmations that aren't fluffy slogans but declarations of identity. Not, I hope to be successful, but I am a powerful creator. I trust myself. I walk in clarity and purpose. And don't just say them, feel them, rehearse them, burn them into your nervous system until they feel more natural than the old lies ever did. Your subconscious doesn't respond to logic, it responds to repetition. But don't stop at affirmations. Embody. Ask yourself daily, what would this version of me do right now? Would they shrink back into doubt? Or would they trust the process? Would they worry about how things appear? Or walk forward knowing the mirror is catching up? Every choice you make while holding that new identity is a signal that says, this is who I am now. And the mirror listens, slowly at first, then suddenly. You're not faking it. You're remembering it. You're peeling back the conditioned identity and stepping into the truth that's been waiting underneath. And it's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real, living as the clearest version of who you choose to be, not who you've been programmed to stay. This is how the mirror shifts, not through force, but through frequency, not by begging for a better reflection, but by becoming the person the reflection can't ignore. And once that new image becomes your default, not your effort, the world around you will reorganize, not because you've demanded it, but because you've aligned with it. That's the hidden power of rebuilding the image. The mirror isn't the goal, it's just the feedback. The real transformation begins and ends with you. Almost everyone is stuck in the same unconscious loop. They look at life, react to what they see, and let that reaction dictate how they think, feel, and behave. Something goes wrong. They spiral. Someone disrespects them. They shrink. An opportunity disappears. They doubt their worth. They believe they're responding to life, but really, they're just responding to a reflection. And as long as they keep living that way, nothing changes. They're trapped in a mirror cycle they don't even know exists. Here's how that cycle plays out for most people. Observe, react, reinforce. You observe your circumstances, your finances, your health, your relationships. You react emotionally based on what you see. That emotional state reinforces the beliefs you already hold. I'm not enough. I'll never get ahead. Life is against me. Those beliefs shape your internal image, and that image becomes the signal the mirror reflects back into your life. So the cycle loops. Your reactions generate more of the same outcomes, and the mirror obeys again and again. It's a perfect trap, because it feels like logic. You're just reacting to what's real, right? Wrong. You're reacting to what's already been created by the version of you that came before. The mirror doesn't show you what's true, it shows you what's familiar. And it keeps showing you that until you stop playing the same identity on repeat. But here's the shift that changes everything. Conscious creators flip the mirror cycle. They don't wait for the reflection to tell them how to feel. They decide who they are before the mirror shows it back to them. They choose the image, regardless of what's currently reflected. And because the mirror has no choice but to follow the image, reality begins to bend. Slowly at first, then obviously, then undeniably. When you flip the formula, the order becomes this: identity first, energy second, action third, and reflection last. You wake up and declare, "This is who I am," and you align your energy with that truth. You feel into it, you move from it, and you don't look to the mirror for validation. You trust that the reflection is on its way, even if it hasn't arrived yet. And the more consistent you are with the signal, the faster the feedback changes. This is how mastery begins. Not by controlling the outside world, but by mastering the source of the signal. And the source is always you. Not your circumstances, not your past, not your environment, just you. And when you start from that place, the game changes completely. You stop chasing reflections, you start creating them. There will be moments when the old reality tries to pull you back, when the mirror tempts you to believe nothing's different. But if you hold the new image through that resistance, you break the loop, you interrupt the algorithm, you override the autopilot with intention, and the mirror has to shift. Not because you're special, but because you're finally using the rulebook correctly. Flipping the mirror cycle is not about pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's not about spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. It's about holding a deeper truth, even when the surface hasn't caught up. It's about deciding who you are, and then letting the world rearrange itself around that decision. And it will. Not always immediately, but always eventually. Because once the image changes, the mirror must follow. That's not hope. That's the law. There's a moment in the journey where something inside you shifts, not because your circumstances have changed, not because you got what you wanted, but because you realize you're done waiting. You stop needing the reflection to catch up before you claim who you are. You stop negotiating with doubt. You stop asking for permission to feel empowered, fulfilled, worthy. That's the moment you step into the reflection before it arrives. And that moment changes everything. Most people delay their identity. They tell themselves, when I have the money, I'll feel secure. When I meet the right person, I'll be confident. When my life finally works, I'll relax. But the mirror doesn't work on future tense. It doesn't say, once you get it, you'll feel it. It says, once you feel it, you'll get it. Not because the feeling magically creates results, but because the feeling is evidence of alignment. And alignment is the frequency the mirror responds to. Living in the reflection before it shows up doesn't mean faking it. It means feeling into it, choosing to embody the energy of the reality you want, as if it's already here. You don't wait for the world to change. You show up as if it already has. You walk into the day with the posture, tone, rhythm, and calm of someone who knows they're already becoming. You move from faith, not fear, from inner truth, not external proof. And that shift changes the way life meets you. People will begin to respond differently to you. Opportunities will start showing up without you chasing them. You'll handle setbacks with a calm you didn't have before because your internal world is no longer being dictated by temporary appearances. You've moved out of reaction and into creation, not because everything's perfect, but because you finally stopped tying your identity to what's currently visible. It's not easy. You'll still have days where the old story whispers in your ear. You'll still be tempted to look to the outside world for confirmation. But that's the test. Can you hold the new image even when nothing outside supports it yet? Can you live as the future version of yourself before the mirror has caught up? That's the edge. That's where the old self dies and the new one is born. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about rewriting it from the inside out. You're not delusional for acting like your life is already aligned. You're disciplined. You're courageous. You're no longer letting the mirror dictate your state. You're showing the mirror who to reflect. You're not waiting for life to say yes. You're saying yes to yourself now and trusting that the reflection will adjust in time. Every time you choose to walk as the version of yourself you say you want to become, you collapse the gap between vision and reality. You shorten the delay. You synchronize the signal. And eventually the reflection appears. Not because you forced it, but because you finally became someone it could reflect. You stopped playing small. You stopped repeating history. You stopped living like your past was your personality. This is what it means to live in the reflection before it arrives. To hold the frequency so consistently that the world has no choice but to catch up. Not in theory, not someday, but now, quietly, boldly, daily. Because when your identity shifts, your reality has no choice but to move, not all at once, but undeniably. And from that place, you stop trying to change the mirror. You start dancing with it. This entire time, the mirror wasn't broken. It wasn't faulty. It wasn't late. It was simply reflecting what you were unknowingly showing it. The patterns you repeated, the energy you radiated, the beliefs you held when no one was watching. And now that you see it for what it is, the only question that remains is, what image are you going to show it next? You can't unknow this truth. Not now. Not after everything you've uncovered. You can't go back to believing that life is random, that struggle is destiny, that change is just luck in disguise. Because deep down, you now understand something most people will never grasp. Your life isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. The mirror is not your master. It's your feedback. And once you own that, you stop being a victim of the reflection and start becoming the architect of it. But ownership means responsibility. No more blaming circumstances, no more waiting for signs, no more rehearsing your limitations like they're part of your DNA. The mirror is waiting, and it doesn't care how long you've been stuck. It doesn't care what you failed at. It doesn't care how loud your self-doubt has become. The moment you project a new image, consistently, emotionally, unapologetically, it will shift. Not out of mercy, out of law. You're not here to chase outcomes. You're here to choose identity. That's what flips the mirror. That's what starts the chain reaction. Your new life doesn't start when something outside of you changes. It starts when something within you changes. When you say, "This is who I am now," and your actions, emotions, and focus align with that decision, even when the reflection hasn't caught up yet. And if you've made it this far, it's because you're ready. Ready to stop observing and start projecting. Ready to stop reacting and start embodying. Ready to stop looking at the old reflection for proof and start living in the new one before it appears. This isn't spiritual hype. This is quantum alignment. It's ancient, it's universal, and it's yours to use now. But here's the truth. What we've covered in this video is just the surface. There's more to this. Deeper layers, more precise techniques, hidden insights we can't speak openly about here. That's why you need to join Insights Academy, our free newsletter for truth seekers and conscious creators. You'll unlock teachings we reserve for insiders, and right now, you'll receive a digital copy of The Kybalion, the foundational Hermetic text, completely free. But don't wait. Some things aren't meant to stay public forever. This is your moment, not a metaphor, not a pep talk, a real shift, from reflection to projection, from reaction to authorship, from who you've been to who you choose to be, starting now. Will it be easy? Number. But it will be worth it. Because once the mirror starts catching up to your new frequency, life begins to feel different. People treat you differently. Challenges become invitations. Delays become timing. And you realize you've stepped into the version of yourself you once thought was out of reach. You're not manifesting a dream. You're remembering it. You're embodying it. You're aligning with a future that was always waiting for you to claim it. And now, you're ready. Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand that the mirror was never in control. You were. You are. If you take anything from this, let it be this. The mirror principle is not just a philosophy. It's a way of life. The world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. So choose wisely, choose clearly, and most of all, choose intentionally. Because the reflection is coming. It always does. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."